Putin's deadly missile set off alarm in Ukraine as the war escalates and Moscow's arsenal comes into sharper focus? Ukraine yet to face the full wrath of Putin's mighty missile arsenal, as Russia holds back some of its most dangerous weapons? Putin's missile stockpile becomes Ukraine's top target after oil infrastructure, as Kyiv looks to cripple Russia's strike power. Ukraine guns for Russia's Iskander missiles, while Putin threatens deadly payback if Kyiv targets his critical arsenal.
The Kyiv regime has set out to damage our economy. What has it done? It has opened Pandora's box itself. Well, get an answer about your Ukrainian most sensitive economic sectors, which, frankly, are already on their last legs.
Zelensky forced to beg and pay for more Patriots from America, as Ukraine races to strengthen its battered air defenses? Will Donald Trump give Zelensky more weapons if Putin doesn't play ball, as Washington weighs its next move? Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky has made bold claims about Russia's ballistic missile arsenal, warning that Moscow's stockpile could grow significantly. Volodymyr Zelensky claimed Russia currently has around 600 to 630 ballistic missiles, according to his assessment. The Ukrainian president alleged Moscow could produce up to 1,300 ballistic missiles a year if its military industry reaches full capacity. Zelensky also warned Russia could eventually reach a production rate of 100 ballistic missiles every month, raising concerns in Kyiv. Zelensky said, and I quote, "Russia could have up to 1,300 ballistic missiles a year. Right now, they have 600 to 630. We have an approximate understanding of the volume they are counting on from today and through the end of winter. Roughly speaking, they could have 100 ballistic missiles a month. But they are not at that level yet. We are working to weaken their military industry. There are corresponding tasks involving strikes on military targets and other anti-ballistic sanctions." End quote. The Ukrainian president said destroying Russian missile systems is now a key priority, as Kyiv seeks to reduce Moscow's growing strike capability. Zelensky claimed Ukraine recently destroyed an Iskander missile launcher near the border, striking at one of Russia's key missile systems. Kyiv is also pushing for sanctions aimed at Russia's ballistic missile production, seeking to restrict Moscow's ability to expand its arsenal. Zelensky said Ukraine can intercept many cruise missiles, but ballistic threats remain significantly harder to stop with existing defenses. Zelensky said, and I quote, "We have become quite effective at intercepting other types of missiles. Our combat aircraft are doing so, and we have more IRIS-T systems. Now, the relevant systems are in place, and missiles for them are arriving to counter Russian cruise missiles. We have Hawks as well. We are using many different systems to intercept cruise missiles. But ballistic missiles are ballistic missiles. We are now working to ensure that they do not reach those 1,300, to reduce that number." End quote. Ukraine is also seeking 360 Patriot missiles to strengthen its air defenses through the coming winter months. Zelensky demanded up to 300 Patriot missiles from Ukraine's backers as part of the country's proposed winter defense package. Kyiv also urged access to between 5 and 10% of U.S. stockpiles to help reinforce Ukraine's air defense capabilities. Zelensky claimed Kyiv is ready to pay for the missiles, allowing the U.S. to replenish its own stockpiles while supplying Ukraine. Zelensky said, and I quote, "I wanted to secure 300 missiles for the Patriot systems as part of the winter package. The request from our Air Force is for 360. But when only 600 are produced a year, 360 is not easy to obtain. We are working with countries on additional options. And I would very much like to believe that we can find a way to access some small percentage of U.S. stockpiles, say, 5% or 10%. And we are ready to pay for those supplies. In other words, America would be able to refresh its stockpile, and we would be able to get through the winter." End quote. Footage has surfaced showing a Russian Su-35 firing a Kh-31PM missile at Ukraine, according to Military Watch. The Russian missile was reportedly aimed at components of a Ukrainian MIM-104 Patriot air defense system during the strike. The footage's range Q indicated that the Kh-31PM was launched from about 125 kilometers away, highlighting its long-range engagement capability. The Kh-31PM is designed to hunt radar emissions, making it a specialized threat against air defense systems that rely on active radars. Unlike the older KH-31P, the KH-31PM reportedly uses a broadband multiband passive seeker to detect and engage different radar signals. The missile can target a wider range of radar systems without emitting its own signal, making detection harder before the final attack. The KH-31 family uses a rocket booster during launch before switching to a ramjet engine for sustained high-speed flight. Open source estimates put later KH-31 variants at speeds of around Mach 4 or higher, giving defenders little time to react. Russian Su-35 fighters have also been observed carrying KH-31PM missiles in Ukraine, indicating continued use of the weapon in air defense suppression missions. The missile's high speed and large warhead can sharply reduce the time available for air defense crews to detect the threat and relocate. French President Macron said France would provide Ukraine with more interceptor missiles as Kyiv faced continued Russian missile and drone attacks. Macron on August 22 said France would accelerate military equipment deliveries to Ukraine amid the intensifying Russian strikes. The announcement came after deadly Russian double-tap strike on Kryvyi Rih, which targeted the Ukrainian city in 2 waves. Macron said he spoke with Zelensky after the daylight attack and expressed deep concern over Russia's continued targeting of Ukraine. Emmanuel Macron said, and I quote, "With these strikes and those this week against Kyiv, Russia is continuing and intensifying the crime of its aggression. By systematically targeting civilians, and by choosing intimidation and escalation, Russia is likely seeking to project strength but is above all revealing an admission of weakness. In this context, it is crucial to provide Ukraine with all the necessary means to defend its skies and thwart this aggression. I announced to President Zelensky the strengthening of our support, with the delivery of interceptors and the continuation of our cooperation." In the wake of the launch meeting of the anti-missile coalition held in Paris on July 13 last and the letter of intent signed on November 17, 2025. It is essential that all countries with capabilities at their disposal also join this effort. Unquote. Zelensky said his nearly 2-hour call with Macron also focused on strengthening Ukraine's air defenses and securing additional financing for the war effort. The two leaders agreed to accelerate deliveries of France's latest weapons and missiles as Ukraine sought to strengthen its defenses. Zelensky also thanked Macron for granting licenses that would allow French missiles to be produced in Ukraine, expanding Kyiv's local defense capacity. Kyiv has repeatedly appealed for more interceptor missiles as Russian missile and drone attacks continue to overwhelm parts of Ukraine's air defenses. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin rejected Ukraine's peace proposal, dismissing the offer as outlandish and signaling that Moscow remains far from accepting Kyiv's terms.
As for what is happening now, this is, of course, the result of yet another reckless move by the Kyiv regime and its Western backers, who have set out to inflict yet another strategic defeat on Russia. This time, as is well known, within 40 days and by means of massive missile strikes and UAV attacks on our civilian infrastructure and logistics. A public declaration was made stating the aim to destroy entire sectors of our country's economy and to undermine the unity of our people and the cohesion of Russian society. In short, the aim is to bring Russia to the brink of collapse, something they have long dreamt of and constantly talk about. As is well known, this 40-day period expired on August 5th. And so, the question arises, what is the result? Of course, strikes against civilian, virtually unprotected targets and, most importantly, against civilians, cause economic damage to our country and result in losses. And the loss of every single person, I want to emphasize this, is always a tragedy. For the family, for loved ones, and for the whole country. We know full well that the Nazis during the Great Patriotic War and the Second World War, and the neo-Nazis today, derived, and, by all accounts, continue to derive, a particular sense of satisfaction and pleasure from committing such crimes, and we can see that these crimes are continuing. Yet the outcome for the enemy was the exact opposite of what was expected. Of course, no turning point in the confrontation with Russia occurred, nor could it have done. The Kyiv regime and its patrons cannot gain any advantage, have not gained one, and never will. Moreover, in response to this obvious escalation, and I emphasize obvious, which is not based on an objective analysis of the situation on the battlefield or the state of the Ukrainian economy, society, and state, which is being eroded by corruption, but rather on public relations and political ambitions. In response to this reckless venture, We have indeed stepped up our strikes, as you have just mentioned. We have stepped up strikes against enterprises in Ukraine's defense industrial complex, including those in Kyiv, and have begun to respond to the enemy's actions against our civilian industrial and logistics facilities. The Kyiv regime has set itself the goal of damaging our economy. What has it done? It has opened this Pandora's box all by itself. Well then, you'll get a response targeting your most vulnerable economic sectors, which, to be honest, are already on their last legs. This, incidentally, also applies to agricultural production, from the export of which the Kyiv regime receives its main income.
Upgrade your news experience with the all-new HT app. Download now.